At exactly 9 a.m. Kelly walked in like she owned the place, Dad right beside her, both of them beaming, their faces full of pride and satisfaction, as though they had already conquered the world. Employees, some of whom had worked alongside me since the early days, stood a little straighter when Kelly passed, uncertain of what the new order would mean for them. I watched quietly from my office, coffee cup in hand, my heart pounding but my expression unreadable. To them, it looked as if I was just another department head, someone awaiting instructions from their new leader. But inside, I felt an energy I hadn't felt in years, the kind that comes not from fear, but from clarity. Kelly tapped her heels down the hallway with the same sharpness she'd once used to dismiss me when we were kids. She headed into the main conference room, Dad at her side, their voices carrying as they laughed with the executives she had summoned for this transition meeting. Transition, that word alone made my stomach twist. For a moment, I thought of the nights I had spent alone in this very building, working until dawn, fixing bugs, drafting contracts, or personally troubleshooting issues for clients just to keep them from leaving us. I thought of the team members I had hired, mentored, and stood by, and then I thought of Kelly's speech last night, her easy confidence as she stripped me of everything in front of the people who mattered most. But Kelly had no idea the storm she had unleashed. I straightened my blazer, closed my office door, and opened the file folder that had been sitting on my desk for weeks. Documents, records, emails, all neatly compiled. Proof of who had built this company, proof of who held the patents, the contracts, and the intellectual property that formed its backbone. Proof that Green Chin Technologies wasn't just a family project, it was my creation. While Kelly had been shaking hands with investors, I had been quietly preparing for the day she would try to make her move. I had seen the signs long before she even realized she was broadcasting them, her sudden interest in private board meetings, her eagerness to charm Dad into believing she was the visionary. Kelly always underestimated me. She thought my silence meant weakness, but what she never understood was that silence could also mean strategy. As the conference room door closed down the hall, I stood, gathered my folder, and walked calmly toward it. My heels clicked against the polished floor, steady and deliberate, each step fueled by years of sacrifice, humiliation, and resilience. When I entered, the room quieted, dozens of eyes turned toward me, executives, managers, senior staff, all waiting to see what role I would play in this new era Kelly had so dramatically declared. Kelly smiled thinly, though her eyes flashed with irritation. "Patricia," she said smoothly, her voice carrying the practiced ease of someone who loved to be on stage. "I was just about to explain the new structure moving forward. You'll have a place, of course, something that fits your skills." Her words hung in the air, patronizing and sharp, like a knife wrapped in silk. I laid the folder on the table, slowly sliding it forward so that the executives could see the neatly bound pages inside. Then I looked directly at Kelly, my voice steady but laced with a calm authority she had never heard from me before. "Actually, Kelly, I think it's time I explained how things will move forward." Her smile faltered, Dad's brow furrowed. Around the table, people shifted in their chairs, sensing that something far heavier than a routine meeting was about to unfold. For the first time in years, I felt no need to hide in the background, no need to bite my tongue. This was my company, and it was time everyone remembered it. Faces I couldn't wait to watch crumble. "Patricia," Kelly said, her voice sharp with annoyance, though a flicker of unease betrayed her, "what are you doing here, after last night? I assumed you'd have the sense to stay home, at least show some grace." I smiled, calm, steady, a smile that hid the storm beneath. Grace, that was always the word they used to keep me quiet. Grace was their way of saying submit, accept, stay small, but last night had stripped me of that illusion. I wasn't here for grace, I was here for truth. "I'm just finishing up a few things, dear sister," I replied smoothly. "Since you're here, we might as well talk about the company's future." Dad shifted beside her, his tone hard, his loyalty already declared. "There's nothing to discuss. Kelly is in charge now. The board already approved it." I let the silence hang for a moment before raising my tablet. "The board?" I said softly, my eyes never leaving his. "Let's talk about that, shall we?" All eyes in the conference room followed me as I connected the device to the big screen. The display flickered, then lit up with documents I had prepared long ago, proofs, records, signatures they had all forgotten. While Kelly was busy throwing parties and giving interviews, I was the one actually building this company, and there are a few key details you've both conveniently overlooked. I tapped the screen. The first document appeared. First off, I said clearly, I own 55% of Greenchin Technologies. When the company was incorporated 13 years ago, Dad gave both Kelly and me 27% each, keeping 46% for himself. But 5 years ago, when we needed extra funding to expand, Dad sold me 12% of his shares. He was too distracted attending Kelly's award ceremony to look closely at the paperwork he signed. Gasps rippled around the room. Dad's face drained of color. Kelly's nails dug into the table. That's not possible, she whispered, her voice trembling. Dad would never. He did. I cut her off. More documents appeared on the screen. And that's not all. The software responsible for 90% of our revenue, it isn't owned by Greenchin Technologies. It's owned by my company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Greenchin only had a license to use it. I paused deliberately, then added, that agreement expired 15 minutes ago. Dad slumped back into his chair, realization crashing down. His voice was hoarse. The renewal forms. The ones you asked me to sign last week. I didn't read them. I was helping Kelly with the party. Exactly. My voice was calm, and I decided not to submit them. Kelly's mask slipped, anger pouring through. You manipulative little. Careful, sister, I warned, raising a hand. You might want to hear the rest before you finished that sentence. While you were celebrating my so-called graceful exit, I was sending emails. The next slide showed my inbox. Reply after reply from our biggest clients. Most of them didn't sign with Greenchin because of its name. They signed because of me. Many contracts included loyalty clauses allowing them to walk away if I ever left. Last night, I told them I was leaving. Kelly snatched up her phone. Her hands shook as she scrolled, reading messages pouring in. Her perfect empire was crumbling in real time. You can't do this, she stammered. The company you tried to steal from me? I countered, my voice cool. That company doesn't exist anymore. You killed it when you stood on that stage and called me worthless. The silence in the room was thick. Through the glass walls, I could see employees checking their phones, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Everyone knew what was happening. I stood, straightened my dress, and laid out their choices. Option 1, I walk away. I take my shares, my software, my clients, my employees. Greenchin becomes an empty shell. You explain to investors why it all collapsed overnight. Dad looked hollow, broken, older than I had ever seen him. And option 2? He asked quietly. Option 2, I said, is simple. You both resign. I take full control. You stay on as silent partners. You'll get your dividends, but no power. Kelly gets a severance and glowing references to help her find a job somewhere far away. Kelly's fury boiled over. You planned this, she hissed. You've been waiting to stab us in the back. I let out a short, cold laugh. No, Kelly, I spent 12 years trying to be a good daughter and a supportive sister. You took credit, and I stayed silent. You posed for cameras, and I worked in the dark. I didn't plan this until 12 hours ago, when you humiliated me in front of everyone we know. My phone buzzed again. Another client termination. I turned the screen toward them. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour blurred into signatures, lawyers, and the quiet unraveling of an empire. By noon, I was sitting alone in what was now officially my office. Victory tasted bittersweet. The company was saved, but the family was shattered. Dad avoided my eyes. Kelly stormed out, her face streaked with angry tears. Mom arrived later, her voice soft, broken. Did it really have to end this way? She asked. They left me no choice, I whispered. They would have erased me. That night, I laid out my blueprints, the ones I'd hidden for years, plans for innovations, expansions, products that would redefine our industry. This time, there was no one to hold me back. And in the months that followed, Greenchin thrived like never before. Clients returned, investors doubled down. Within a year, the company tripled in value. My name, was the one people celebrated now. Kelly moved to Manhattan, working for a small startup. Dad retired quietly. Holidays became a fragile ritual, the space between us filled with unspoken truths. Some wounds, I knew, would never heal. But I had healed. Because sometimes the quiet ones, the underestimated ones, the ones nobody notices, are the ones who hold all the power. And when we finally rise, we don't just rise for ourselves, we We rise to remind the world of a simple truth: you should never mistake silence for weakness.